Welcome to the Hobby King Bush Mule build part 3, and we're going to be working on getting some of this hardware onto it, getting the wheels on and getting the wings on.
Welcome to Retired Time Productions.
Hello, this is Dave from Retired Time Productions, and I think I'm going to start with mounting the main wing, the center section, onto the fuselage. So let's pick out the screws that we need to do that. Now there's two sets of screws here. Now I found out that these threaded screws here are actually to hold on the main wing. And these skinnier pointed ones are to hold the vertical stabilizer and horizontal stabilizer onto the rear of the plane. So those go in the aft to hold the tail feathers on. These hold the main wing section. Now, before I put the wing on, I'm going to go ahead and secure the MinimOSD, which is on the other side of this wall, with one of these biscuits I made from some vinyl siding. So I just take a piece of vinyl siding, which is like this, and cut out a piece. Then I use a paper punch or hole punch to just make a couple notches in it. And then you can put a tie wrap around it like this to hold whatever's on the other side. So I'm going to do that now. So there's the piece of vinyl siding installed with a tie wrap around it. And I did the same thing for the power module, by the way. So just a note, I'm going to be putting the pan, the tilt, and the bay door servos on the 3 spare channels on the EZUHF instead of going through the APM. Now putting in the wing screws. And they should be pretty easy to get down in there. I test fitted them ahead of time to make sure the threads were nice and smooth. So we'll just get them in place. Just making them snug. I'm not going to over tighten them because it is just plastic. I think you can see that the screws just barely stick down through the foam there at the top. So that answers the question, where did they go? So now working on the aft end here, and I'm just flexing the elevator as recommended in the manual to make sure this isn't too hard on the servo to move. So just flexing the hinge and doing that a number of times just to make sure it is free to move. So my EZUHF cable is coming right through here for my receiver. And now I'm going to put in the horizontal stabilizer into its notch right there. And we have the EZUHF cable sticking up right there. Now we're going to take the vertical stabilizer, which I've already mounted the EZUHF dipole antenna into. And I'm going to feed the antenna down through a hole that I've got right here. Right there. The other end over here has to go down into this notch. Just like that. Pressing it down in. And that's in. And now I can just attach the cable right here and push the excess back down through there. So that should be it right about there. Okay, now I got to get the 2 screws in. So these are the screws for the tail section, as discussed earlier, and I'm going to go ahead and put them in. Now the manual says you probably should use some foam tack or something to glue down the control surfaces as well, but I'm not going to do that because I want to get these off later to change my EZUHF cable when the new one comes in. I'm going to put in a straight one instead of one with a 90-degree bend. Okay, so let's get these fastened down. Okay, so I've got them in there all the way. I'm not making them too tight because I don't want to crack the plastic. Now there's 3 control rods here, and I found out the long one is for the rudder and the medium one's for the elevator, and this short one is for the nose wheel. Now the manual recommends that you cut some fuel line tubing to secure the clevis after you close it. So I'm just going to cut off a couple pieces of fuel line tubing here. I got a whole roll of it. So we're going to put them on like this with a little piece of fuel line tubing there. I can slide up to keep the clevis from opening up. So I'm going to put the control rod into the second hole on the servo arm and then clip it onto the second hole right here. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the plane and center the servo and then make any adjustment I need on this threaded section to get the right length. And then I'll go ahead and clip it on there and slip the fuel line over it to hold it. So I had to make sure that my elevator servo was going the right direction, and that meant I had to reverse it in my radio. I also made sure the elevator trim was in the center, so the servo's in the center. And then I went and adjusted the clevis so everything was the right length, put it into the second hole, and now I'm going to clip it down and then slide the fuel line over it. Now working on the rudder servo. The control rod for that looks like it's not quite reaching the way I'd like it to be. So I think what I'm going to do is take the servo arm off and move it forward a little bit. Just unscrew it, move it forward a little, and put it back on. So I'm going to do that first to give me a little bit more room. So I moved the servo horn forward a little bit, and I also trimmed the radio, put it in center, and checked to make sure it was going the right direction, and then adjusted the clevis so it was the right length. Now I'm going to put this fuel line over it just like the other one to keep it from opening up. Now I'm just going to check the control surfaces from the rear to see that everything's working right. Okay, there's pulling up, that's correct. And now I'm going to try the rudder. Oh,
Trim center.
There's the rudder, going left, going right. So everything looks good right now. So here's what we need to put on the landing gear. We're going to need, of course, the nose wheel. We'll start with that, putting on the nose wheel. So we've got the servo arm right here, or the control rod for the servo right here. And then we have the arm that goes onto this shaft right here. And it has a grub screw that tightens onto a flat place on the shaft. And we need to lock it down with some of this. This is nice stuff. This is thread locker. And comes from Mercury Adhesives, and it has the little brush in the cap so that it's easy to get onto small screws like this. And then of course we have the Allen wrench to tighten it down. I've got the plane propped up here and something on the wheel to make it easy. Now I'm coating the grub screw with a little bit of thread locker. Doesn't take much, and this brush makes it easy to put it on. It took a little bit of fuss to get it in. I actually turned the wheel sideways so I could get the Allen wrench all the way in there. It was hitting the side of the plane. So I put it in that way, then I could just twirl it like this and screw the screw in. And I had to go back and forth several times to make sure it was on the flat place on the shaft and not somewhere else. But it seems good now. Got it locked in. There's already a pre-drilled hole right here in the servo arm, so this hole is the only place you can put the rod. And then I've just got to get the right length. So I've got the radio on, and let's see. So when I'm going left, it's going to turn the wheel left. So yeah, that looks good. And I just need to get it the right length and clip it on here. Okay, finally got it on. There it is. You notice there's not a lot of turn in the wheel. And they don't want a lot of throw on the front wheel, apparently. Now going to install the main landing gear. And they just go down to in a slot like that. Just slide right in. And then there's a couple pieces of plastic that go across here to hold them in. Now here is the what they consider to be 2mm self-tapping screws right here. They just look like servo screws to me. There's also 4 of this type, but they're too big to go in the hole. Now I think I have these upside down. I think that little bar there actually faces down towards the landing gear like that. Starting with this one. Okay, last one. Landing gear's on. It's starting to look pretty good with the wheels on it like that. Now let's work on putting on the outer wing sections. This was pointed out to me earlier that these wing spars actually have a curve to them, and you want the curve going up to give it a little bit of dihedral. So I'll just go ahead and insert that. And now we got to hook up the cables. Now it looks like the cables should just go with the colors, you know. Since one has the white, red, black, I should put the one with the red and black on that one. And the other one that has the orange, red, and brown should go to the one with orange, red, and brown, I would think. So I'm just going to go with that first. See if that's true. Similar to that right there. It's just getting power, I guess. Those were for the lights. Alright. Now that's that part. I might want to test it just to see if I'm on the right track. So yeah, that looks like the way. The lights are lit up right here. And on the end of the wing too. I don't think you can see that, but the red light's on for the left wing. And the aileron does move. Moving the wrong direction though, so I'm going to have to reverse that in my radio. But it looks like the wiring is right there. It looks like I was wrong earlier. These screws here are actually for the wings and not for the floats. So that means I don't have any screws for the floats. I think somebody mentioned that before, that you got to provide your own self-tapping screws for the floats. Alright, I'm going to slip the wing on. And let's see, I'll just put those screws out of the way since one fell anyhow. Get these wires back in the hole. Just trying to see if these screws are even lined up in the hole. That one went in. I might have to shave a little piece off this plastic because it's not giving me enough room to put the screw in the hole. The manufacturing process always has a little bit of variation in it. And sometimes you just have to work around it. It still doesn't want to quite go in there. It looks like something's blocking the hole. So I'll probably have to take the wing off and see what's in that hole. Well, I found that this screw here, which was above this peg, didn't have anything to bite into. There was no hole in the peg at all, and the screw would just come right back out. So I went ahead and drilled a small indent or small hole into the peg, hoping that that screw will seat in that so it won't fall out. So now I'm going to reassemble the wing and see how it works. Okay, that worked better. This screw had something to screw into now. It's screwed into that hole I put in the peg. So now it won't come out. And this one was already good. So now I think we got it. Is that a manufacturing defect, or did I see something the wrong way? I don't know. Let me know. Well, it looks like the right wing has the same problem as the left wing. I can see that these holes are off center right here, so I'm going to have to cut some of this plastic off for the screw to go in. Same thing on the other one. And I can see that the peg is in the way on, I think it's this hole. Peg is still in the way, so I'm going to have to go through drilling out the peg. So just drilling a little hole in the peg. Takes a little time, but it's all I can come up with. Hopefully somebody else knows what's going on here. Has anyone else had this trouble where the screw won't go in or stay in? It goes in, but it just falls back out because there's nothing for it to bite into. Okay, I'm going to finish up this hole and then get the wing on. Now I'm going to be working on putting on the struts right here, and they just clip on, so that should be easy. I found these 4 washers in the kit, and I still haven't figured out what they're for. So if anybody knows, let me know. They don't seem to fit anything that I've found so far. Okay, let's try one of these struts. Didn't quite want to go over there. There, I think I got it. Put a spring clip on. Let's go all the way on. Okay, so they're on now. Well, one of them's on. I'll go do the other one off camera. They're very easy. Okay, so the struts are on. One thing that seems odd is you can't open the doors wide anymore. So it's a little hard to access what's in there. So that's just something to note. Now just a quick check of the control surfaces to make sure they all work. So it looks like they're going the right directions. And everything's happy. Now just to make sure that everything's right, I'm going to have to go through and make sure the flight controller reacts properly for the stabilization. So that's the next trick, and I'll just do that off camera because it's an APM thing. Most flight controllers, you have to move the plane around and make sure the control surfaces go the right way when they react to the movement. And if they don't, you just reverse them in the flight controller software. In my case, it's the mission planner. The props are counter-rotating and they spin towards the fuselage from the top like this. That one goes that way and this one goes that way. So that gives you some idea how they go on. Also, I discovered that both of the nuts actually go on the front to hold down the prop. There's no nut in the back, but there's actually a thing that looks like a nut, which is just part of this flange, and the prop slips over that hex thing. Looks like a nut, but it isn't. It's just part of the flange. And once you get the prop over that hex thing, then you put the two nuts on the front, and then you can even Loctite the last nut. The second nut, I put a little bit of Loctite on it just to make sure it's secure. Just medium Loctite, this thread locker stuff. And then I went ahead and screwed the cap on. So it looks like this when you're done. Now here's what I did with the FPV setup. As you know, the Bush Mule does come with an FPV type canopy, or you could put a pan tilt or whatever. But just to get things rolling and get this in the air, I decided to do a quick FPV setup with the camera mounted right in the front here. So there is the camera sticking out this hole. And I decided to put the video transmitter right here. It's a 1.3 gigahertz transmitter, 400 milliwatts. So I actually carved out a hole right here and put some Velcro behind it, and I just stick it right into that cavity. The wires run down through here and connect to the MinimOSD, and then back out of the MinimOSD to the camera. And I'm going to power the whole thing just off this wire right here to a separate battery right here. So a separate 12 volt battery for the video. That should keep the signal clean. So that's the basic idea right there, just for a test flight, because we definitely want to get some video, want to see the OSD and see what's going on as far as all the readings. Okay, so that's it for this video. Next video I'm going to show you some flight footage as we test it, and hopefully it'll work and it won't come back in pieces. Okay, talk to you later. Bye bye.